find some time machines, we went round the world from the USA to India. We had more than 100 meetings with different people who told us very much about time machine. All stories, time and countries were different. Some of them were unbelievable and fantastic, some interesting and exciting. Today, I would like to inform you about it. Your opinion would be changed, and you will accept the science in another way. We will not say you the names of these people. It will be a secret because they share with us and gave such kind of information which can be fatal for them in future. Due to our search, we got to Italy. We met there a man who traveled from 2002 to 3035 year. We saw very strange things about him.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to Italy. I'm sure that 99% of you know who were Caesars, if you have ever read historical books. But I'm not sure that you have ever listened about Italian military Caesars project. Why I'm sure? Because it was a secret project and only 100 people knew about it. They worked at that project or took part in it at the mice in laboratory. Yes, you could guess I was one of these mice. I appeared there as a military army serviceman in 2002 when I was 49. I traveled to 3035 year. I will not tell you everything in details about my meeting with the project leaders, how I signed many documents. I would like to tell about something interesting about my travel. The equipment was very strange. It was a metal chair with many wires and sharp iron cables. I sat on the table and everything began. My hands were tied by seat belts. Somebody put an iron crown on my head with many electric cables. The crown looked as a Caesar's crown. As you know, our Italians are very modern in any question. You must know that all secret was in electricity. We don't appreciate the possibilities of electricity. If you are interested in it, you must know that you will notice that 99% of all stories are connected with electricity component. And so I was tied to the chair, and with the crown on my head, I began my first dangerous and terrible travel. During that process, I felt electricity by my whole body. I listened its noise. I wanted to shout, but couldn't. My eyes couldn't see anything. Because of electric lights, everything was white. In some minutes when I could see, I found myself in a very strange place. If you ask me why it was strange, I will say you that they were buildings. That's why I was surprised. Of course, there are other things for our surprise, but those buildings were great from technical point of view. There were many screen advertisements around the buildings. The cars were flying in the sky as in some fantastic films, but streets were empty. That is, the problem of traffic jam was solved. Yes. I was walking along the streets, along the famous brand cars shops, which entrances were very high, about 20-storied buildings in comparison. The advertisement on the great buildings showed people with strange techniques and clothes. When I looked around, they wore very primitive clothes without electronics. As I could understand, people were divided into different types. The Supreme Society elite lived on the upper floors, flew in the sky without traffic jam. What about underclass? They lived on the ground floors, walking along the streets, lived in the worst conditions, and even couldn't go to the brand shops. There were also robots who did a very, very dirty work, clean the streets. They repaired the advertising screens at a very high altitude. In appearance, they were similar to us, no any artificial skin, but they were made from iron. I was shocked by the fact that they smiled and laughed. They were very friendly to each other. Can you imagine that they had their own brain, as if they were not robots, as if it was another race, which was found and turned into slaves. I mustn't forget that they gave me a watch with a button on it. If I pushed it, I would be back into my time, again with the help of electricity. I saw a taxi which flew down from the sky. One man got of it, he was covered with techniques. The taxi was about going up, but I ran and asked to wait for me. I reflexively addressed him in Italian. And he answered me in Italian too. I understood that I was in Italy, in the same place from where I began my traveling. I asked him to take me to the sky in the order to see the city from above. He asked me for money. I put my hand in the pocket and found some euro of 2002 year. I don't think that 30-35 year that they used such money. He saw my money and at once shot it happily. It was the same for them as if you can find a coin now which was used during the Roman reign. And so I got in a car and we flew up. You simply can't imagine the city looking from above the sky. It was very funny, because everything was changed except brand cars. There was something unknown. But during my exotic fly, I saw Mercedes, Lamborghini, Ferrari. Despite the fact that brand was old, but car's design was completely new. There was no any gasoline car. All cars were on electricity. Imagine that you don't pay anything for car fuel. It's unbelievable. Fantastic dream. We fly above the city, the buildings are very high and the city looks like a canvas of surrealist artist. We flew down again, I got off the car and went on. On my way I saw an alien's family. They were walking along the street with their children. Do you imagine they understand that they were part of our society? It's very funny. I thought that people who saw and believe aliens, they were crazy. But now I myself saw them with my own eyes. Not on Mars or Saturn, planet Zodiac. Here in my own native town. Now you can say that I am crazy. Really, it's funny. I have never imagined that it is possible to break Italian coloring. But aliens in Italy, oh, it is something strange. If you could see what kind of cars are here, the car's design was fantastic and strange. If I had any chance to bring something back to 2002 with me, in a word, I would choose a car. I was walking in the town and suddenly a robot got of the car came up to me. He was wearing a uniform. I was asked to follow him. We together got in a car. A military man came up to me and asked who was I. I answered that I was a time traveler. It was clear that I wasn't the first, there were other people before me. Of course, I was very surprised that he knew about time travelers and their machines. He said that even that time the news about time machines was a secret. That information was kept in strict secret because that equipment as if wasn't completely modern. He said he used to travel by time machine during his experiences. Unlike us, those people were not interested in time machines. They thought that such machines were useless. They disturb our future. They created an artificial intellect, and of course, they are not interested in everything we are. The man in military uniform held my hand and said to me angrily, "Let your people know not to send another man here." After that, he quickly pushed the button on my watch. I immediately appeared in 2002 year. I was asked very many questions. I told everything I saw. Before camera and in front of the lie detector. And so, the story about my first fantastic traveling was finished. After that story, I was very interested in the topic but never took part in it. I'm afraid only of one thing. People give a great power to an artificial intellect which can decide the possibility. I am afraid of it, of our future collapse.
As you have been listened already, people created an artificial intellect. And such kind of step could be a terrible collapse. In order to receive an answer to our question, we went to Germany, where we met Anne.
Good day, everybody. I'm Anne. Welcome to Germany. I have studied many people's stories who traveled by time machine. But my story differs from other stories as I appeared in future and stayed there for 3 months. My story begins from my university. I'm a programmer by my specialty. The story which I'm going to tell you about began in 2014. I had a friend, he was a physicist. He suggested me to take part in one project. He told me nothing about his project, but I would like to know everything in details. We met at his place. He began telling me about his works. He decided to freeze the time machine and needed an assistant for that work because there were some problems. We have been known each other for 10 years, and I was the only man he could completely trust. First, I didn't believe him and was very angry with him. I thought he was kidding. I was going to leave, but suddenly he held my hand and asked me to follow him to the cellar. We went. It was a great laboratory with different displays and cables. I didn't understand anything. There were some flasks with colored liquid. In the center of the laboratory, there was a big flask with red liquid. All the equipment in the room were connected with great computer and that flask. He began to present me everything. It was a time machine which was working with the help of the liquid produced by the current. He switched on the hardware, and I saw how the liquid from the small flasks began pouring into the big flask quickly. Suddenly there was the high current noise. Imagine the cusp signals being heard all together at the same time. He switched off the device which had already been experimented with, but he couldn't take it under control. He didn't know the time of its flying. He came up to the table and gave me a big copybook with some formulas such as x7 plus y 10h3 plus z2 0 11. Oh my god, what was that? It looked like maths formula. He said the time is the same unit as the height, voice, power, light speed and others. That was the calculation of his maths friend, where everyone has its number formula. For example, 2040. It was x13 plus y 325 plus z 56. Till now I remember that formula by heart. It means if they want to send you to 2014, they send you on that formula, which means 2040 year. I think I could explain it to you. Now, do you understand? The problem was that I created program which would help us to travel by a time machine and to carry passengers to concretely according those formulas. The whole month I didn't go out of my room creating that program. It consisted from codes and metrics with many operating functions. It was the most difficult work in my life. I tried. I overfulfilled my program by creating it more useful and necessary. They asked me to calculate the period of time, but I created this special program with the definitions of day, time, and the direction of traveling. It seemed to me I was right, you know. So in a month I presented my program to him. He was shocked about the results. We began our experiments at once. He was very happy, you know. To see the result of it, first we sent animals by that machine. We had to understand the procedure in details. Everything we did, we fixed in our program. After animals, we understood that we could prolong the period of our time, not staying on a short time, because to send animals again and again was not useful already, you know, because they couldn't bring in any information, any information about our future. That's why we decided to send a man. And as my friend had to control the device of our experiment, I decided to be sent there myself, because it was dangerous to tell somebody about our secrets. We were only two and nobody more. And so in 2014, on the 4th of August, I sent 3250 number. The formula was x25 plus y 10 0 44 plus z1. The procedure was so terrible. Imagine that you are in a liquid which is electrified. I felt how electricity penetrated into my whole body. I felt my blood to be hot. Oh my gosh. In this way, I found myself in 30 to 50 years. Oh, maybe you would like that world, but for me, it was a great catastrophe, you know. Everything was robotized, the buildings looked alike, they were very high, with screens of ads on them. The street cars were flying in the sky. I was going to walk for a while. Suddenly a fantastic machine appeared before me. They didn't even get off it. The machine's lights illuminated my eyes. And in a second I found myself in it. Where were 3 men and 2 robots. I was asked where I was from. I said I had come from 2014. They said I had to be acquainted with the general. Again, in some minutes, we appeared in their military place. After being acquainted with the general, I understood that he was General Morgan. I was said that I wasn't the only man who traveled there by a time machine, and how could I do it? I was afraid and lied. You know, I lied. I had to do it. I lied as if I myself was surrounded. I was surprised and simply was electrified by accident and was found there in this way. I really didn't remember anything I said. The general took my hand, finding any device on it, and said that usually every traveler had any device on the hand in order to go back in its period of time. As I hadn't any of them on my hand, they trusted that I really didn't know anything about my being there. It was clear that it was forbidden to travel in future at that time, as you could change it. And that was the only crime in all countries that was punishable by death, which was the same for people who can come from the past time, because after their returning, they could tell everything they saw in future and change it. In conclusion, they understood that I rely on my truth, that I was there by accident and it would be wrong to be punished me by death. Of course, they didn't believe in my returning back. They thought I would be in 32 and 50. I had to stay there. In comparison with other time machines, which demanded any device on travelers' hands, our time machine didn't have any device to go back after that procedure. I was sent to the military hospital where I had to stay for 2 weeks. I was terribly surprised that I couldn't come back into 2014, as we didn't plan my being in 3250 for a long time. I thought there were some problems and I had to stay in 3250 forever. Really, I was afraid, 2 weeks had passed. I was taken to go around the town, which was robotized everywhere. Except robots, there were islands as well. It seems that they all lived under one right. How could they? We're different, How could they live under one right? Oh my gosh, I can't understand it. People were surrounded by any equipment. Maybe they made their lifetime easier, maybe. Nobody was walking but had shoes on their feet and moved by air. Can you imagine you yourself walking by air? It's difficult for me again. Their life was very easy and primitive, I say. I don't know who could like such kind of primitive lifetime. But I was sick of it and didn't even want to imagine my being there. I was accompanied by 30 old women who told me about world history and how people began living with aliens. Aliens? Yes. How people began living with aliens. How robots were created, and they were not only robots. They had intellect. Oh my God. And could take a decision. People continued to develop their techniques. During the development, people created fantastic artificial intellect. When such kind of unbelievable technology was created in 3002, there was only a single robot, then some else. They made people free from difficult and unpleasant work as drivers, pilots, and so on, People thought they were slaves. Slaves. Then they created more developed robots who could be president's advisor or assistant. Imagine, president's advisor or assistant. Yes, imagine. In 3030, it was decided to create one great computer which would control all robots, would be connected to all people's phones, computers, to all equipment online or any electronics. The unification of all people was the reason of creating a huge computer named the Emperor of Oceans. It was situated in the Pacific Ocean and occupied about half territory of the whole Europe. Technical and building works continued till 3245. Because the huge computer had constant problems of freezing, and as water freezing had a special temperature, it was decided to put it in the Pacific Ocean. Besides, that huge computer had a terrible and loud sound while working, which was dangerous. For whom? For people, of course, to be near. To be near it about 2 kilometers without special protective equipment. And since so, 3247 year, all mechanism had been ruling by that computer. All problems of programs were disappeared. It remotely controlled all robots and equipment. People had been free from all kinds of jobs and quietly enjoyed their lives. Yes, quietly enjoyed their lives. Imagine. I was said that in 2458 people were connected to that galaxy and its intellectual creatures who were very educated than we are. But they couldn't even imagine that there could be another planet except them. Their population was about 200,000, all in all. Their planet is already on the brink of destruction, you know. After being met with people, they moved to the Earth planet, and since 2460, they have been living among people. They had a fantastic and strong knowledge. Great, very strong knowledge. After their coming, medicine was strictly changed. And really, it is very important for everybody. It was extremely developed. There wasn't any illness that wouldn't cure in some minutes. In their communication with people, they first used some gestures in order to explain them their wishes and doings. But only in some years they all could have a good command of the English language. Their children went to school with our children. I know it is very difficult to accept it. As for me, it is the same. It is difficult to accept, but unfortunately it is a fact. They used to say that they were from a new race as Asian Semite or European one. They created very many new weapons which were not look like even our new future ones. That woman asked me about my business, and I told that I was a computer programmer. I was sad to see their supernatural, ultra-modern, unequaled and incredibly huge innovation. Do you know what? Yes, the Ocean Emperor of Computer. Our travel from Germany to the Pacific Ocean continued only about an hour and a half. Imagine such kind of speed we were moving, but sitting in a very comfortable and pleasant machine, I didn't feel the speed. At last we reached the place very quickly. It was a huge equipment. They put some device on my ears which defended me from such loud sounds and voices. They also had the same devices on their ears. After that, we got off the machine. There was a great high building with only one huge door, and we entered. Do you know what was it? It was the Ocean Emperor. You see, it was not only the equipment which was operating different complex functions. It was something with intellect, and it could order to anything to itself. People who accompanied me said that I was a tourist and I came there specially for that. It was my mission. The door opened and we entered that great computer. We met two robots who told me how the computer was built. I looked at other brilliant devices which were working without stopping. Every device was defended by any defensible code. Suddenly, the computer's hologram appeared and began walking with us. It was a very terrible panorama. I felt myself defenseless. We had been there for 20 minutes and continued our travel around the town. Then I was taken to the hotel. I was there about 3 months. Step by step, I wanted to understand everything, but it was crazy. It wasn't alive. It looked like any crazy film director shoot a fantastic film. One day I decided to found myself in 2014. When I opened my eyes, I was so excited and happy that I began to shout and cry. It was clear that the equipment wasn't supernatural and ultra-modern and couldn't control the time interval. Then I was informed that my friend did everything to bring me back. He did it. He was with me those 3 months. Of course, I told him about everything I had seen. We tried to make a program which would help us to return without any problem. It would be our guarantee of coming back in time we wanted. But unfortunately, it was so difficult and we couldn't achieve our aim.
We thought very much after our meeting with Anne, as we had known that in our future all our equipment would be under control of one huge computer, which could not be ruled by somebody. It itself did all demands and decisions, and besides, it had a great power with the help of which it could destroy all the planet at once. We have been finding a man who could be in 3250 and who would be able to tell us everything what was then to tell about the result of the work. What consequences were followed after such horrible and powerful control which was given to that computer? At last we have found one man in Paris, and you will listen about this shocking story we had a chance to know.
La chambre si noire que mes deux petits yeux n'arrivent pas à croire qu'ils sont heureux. Dis, est-ce que le jour il reviendra demain comme toujours? Je n'ai jamais peur, même seul dans mes draps. J'ai pas mal au cœur, j'ai juste un peu froid. Dis, est-ce que le jour...
Beforehand, I would say that the information is very hard to understand, as I am sure you have never heard about such one.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to Paris. I don't know what the word traveling means for you. Maybe adventure or simply going anywhere. But my story differs from yours because I appeared in an unknown place of the planet. I was not born here. I was born in 3258 on 1st December in European Empire. When I was 18, I was drafted into the army and became a military man. I was the witness of everything happened in 3260. You listened about it, but I didn't only watch these events. I participated as I lived at that period of time. You know about nowadays innovations, such as VR eyeglasses, 7D movies, different gadgets. They all look like digital watch if we compare them with everything we have. Life is different here. For example, we don't use fuel, gas or atomic energy. We receive current from the sun batteries. What I like best of all on this planet, it is nature. It is incredible and fantastic. I have been living here for 5 years. I went round the planet, enjoyed it. There are no trees, plants. We have only some animals. I like birds very much, they are so beautiful. If you could see some birds in 3260s, you would be the most lucky man. They are birds of all our planet. Every morning I go to our yard and feed them. In 3260s, gold hadn't been estimated, and even my military uniform with many metal buttons was made of gold. My gloves were made of gold too. Being here, I have a chance to travel around the countries. After seeing it, I would stay here and develop technological progress. And do not let this planet to be destroyed. Do you want to know what I hated here? The robots. They were everywhere. They were not only robots, they were very clever and could take the decisions communicated with each other. When I see your robots, I will laugh at them. They are different. Now I understand the problems of Golden Age. And at last, everything will be as it should be. And it is catastrophic. Now I will return to that topic, my tragic story. I would give everything to stop it. Let's speak about the Emperor of the Ocean. I have said you already that I knew him. That is why I wouldn't tell you about its name and creation again. I would share with you about the consequences. The great artificial intellect was given the perfect power. It was his decision to destroy man and all organic creatures, and the planet would be ruled only by intellect creatures. Everything was begun in 3300 on 21st September when I was 42. In some minutes on the planet were only 3 billion people from 8. The war began. There has never been such war on the planet. It was fateful and tragic for all people all over the world. Together with people, there were aliens from other galaxies who also fought with robots. In some minutes, people lost all technology, phones, weapons, everything. We had only laser automatic machines against robots. If you accidentally could be seen in the camera, the robots appeared there immediately to kill or follow you. We had only one chance. The machines couldn't detect us from satellites. We hid ourselves in the ruins, deserts, in forests and caves, but there were not so many places for hiding. There were 800 people who could hide. I can't say how many people we had at the beginning of war, but in 3 days we lost all means of communication. Only in a month there were 250 people from 800. During that time we killed only 12 robots and changed 3 hiding places. Do you understand now what a great difference was between them and us? During changing places to hide, we met other people and the number of us increased. We were 3,000 already. It was our rescue. Every day was full of difficulties and danger. Imagine how from so developed life we went back to the Stone Age with our primitive knowledge. And we had to save our lives. All of us understand that it was impossible to win, but we continued fighting. We began to attack small robots groups, but we lost many people again. I could hardly put up with it because I had to be strong and brave, as I was the general, and had to lead people to the goal. I would remind you that officially, Time Machine was created as an invention in 2322. It was used only for military aim. In 2 months, it was forbidden to use because somebody could try to change the past time and one of the planets from the past could be disappeared. It was punishable by death to use such kind of machine. And after that, all time machines from the Emperor Ocean were destroyed in order not to go back to the past period of time and not to destruct or change any country. One day we found a boy not far from our hiding place. His clothes looked like ours. He had a metal device on his hand. We took him to our place. First he couldn't speak. as if he was shocked. Then he told that he had come from 2011 year. He was physicist, and it was his friend's attempt to travel by time machine. On the device of his hand, the numbers were written in the opposite direction. He explained that it was the calculation of going back and he had only 20 minutes to return. Only 6 minutes was passed. Some robots appeared in our hiding place. They were following that boy in order to find our place. The real war between them and us began. They prevailed in quantity. People died. It was difficult to defend against such great amount of robots. That boy died too. I ran to him, took his device and quickly put on my hand through my weapon and ran away. You might think that I was a coward, but at that moment I understood that the only way to win was to go back and destroy the life it had not to exist. I found myself in a strange room, in a strange flask. I was shocked. I quickly jumped out of it. There was a boy about 24. He looked at me with great surprise. I told him everything. Till now I make friends with him. First, I wanted to go to 30-30 and to stop the Emperor of Ocean, but then decided to tell about it in this way. I thought I could change everything, but I was wrong. When I told people about my story, they thought that I was crazy. Once they took me to the psychiatric hospital. That is why I prefer to give you some information with the help of this film. Maybe I could save you all from that apocalypse.
I'm sure that this story will change our logic and help us to save our planet. For me, it is impossible to imagine the planet without animals, without plants, without people who enjoy their lives every moment. Just take care of our nature and imagine that it could be disappeared immediately. The idea of automation of all human, all forests, all flowers, all waterfalls can become a fateful for all mankind. To save all the people of the world, one has to realize and refuse from such incomprehensible inventions. Now humanity is like zombie and do not even notice what is happening around. People who believe that virtual life is better than real life. I'm sure that these stories will force you to reconsider your point of view. ApexTV thanks today's all heroes who shared their real stories with us. We thank everybody who watched this movie which showed to mankind the possibility of avoiding apocalypse.